Hello there everyone, my name is Benjamin, welcome to the Coaxium Cantina. We're doing a little bit different videos today since Aiden is unavailable. I'm just gonna do a short, probably 10-minute podcast just by myself. Talking to you guys, so at least you got some content this week since we didn't do it the last time it was supposed to. Because we were busy, so there you go. Sorry about those bleepings. There you go. That's great start. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about fan service and whether it is necessary and whether it's good or not. I just want to point out there is spoilers for the Mandalorian season 2 in this episode. So if you haven't watched it, A, what are you doing? B, go watch it. So there's your warning. I'll give you 5 seconds to click off if you haven't seen Mandalorian. Just go watch it. Cool. Right. So I think everybody that's seen The Mandalorian knows what I'm talking about at this point. Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. Was he fan service, or was he necessary to the story? And my answer to that is both. And that is what good fan service is. Fan service is something that the fans can appreciate, but also that works. And fan service is a way to win the fans over, hence why it's called fan service. But I think Dave Filoni has said it. Dave Filoni said it best. I think it was in the Mandalorian season 2 gallery, where he said, this was with Ahsoka Tano, he said that he didn't want to bring Ahsoka back because why not? He wanted to bring Ahsoka back for a reason. There had to be a reason to bring Ahsoka back. And I think in season 2 there was a very, very valid reason to bring Ahsoka back. Not only to set up the Ahsoka show that we now know is happening, but to get more information about what we now know is Grogu. And that makes sense because Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker, but Luke Skywalker would have come later, but Ahsoka, from what I can remember, is the only Jedi who knew Yoda. So she would be able to give Mando the information he needed. And she did give Mando the information that he needed. So I think fan service is a good way to give information to the fans, but it needs to be done right. And if we go on to Luke Skywalker, I think, was most definitely fan service. But it worked. And I'll tell you why it worked. Because Luke Skywalker did not have an entire episode to himself. That's not me saying that Ahsoka Tano didn't work. Ahsoka Tano also worked because it worked with the story they were telling. Luke Skywalker, it made sense for him to be there. You know, he was training Jedi at the time. He would have recruited Grogu. That makes sense. And he was in the last, 5 minutes of it. The CGI is another, or the deep fake. I don't think, I couldn't tell which one it was, whether it was a deep fake or CGI. I wouldn't say it was great, but that's another debate altogether. But at the same time, I think they did well with what they had. But at the same time, I don't think it was great. But that's, again, another debate for another time. Luke Skywalker was fan service that made sense. The best way I can describe fan service that doesn't make sense is Avengers Endgame, I would say. Avengers Endgame is full of fan service. Some of it works. Some of it is questionable. And it gets to a point where there's so much fan service in Avengers Endgame that it becomes questionable. And that's why it works in The Mandalorian. Because The Mandalorian Season 1 was great by itself. It didn't really have that much fan service, apart from maybe the Carbonite, which wasn't really fan service, but no, I would say the Carbonite wasn't fan service, but The Mandalorian Season 1 worked well by itself. It brought back minimal to no characters that we had already, from what I can remember, and it was a good story. And that is why Season 2 worked so well with its fan service, because it deserved it from Season 1. Like, you kind of expect some fan service in Season 1, but they didn't, and they saved it all for Season 2 and put it all in Season 2. But that's okay. And as long as in Season 3 they don't carry on with this fan service thing, like introducing Han Solo because why not, and Leia because why not, and all that because why not, then Season 2 will work. You know, as I said before, Luke Skywalker makes sense to the plot. There's no breaking of the story of Mando. And as long as the Mandalorian show is still about the Mandalorian and not Luke Skywalker and Grogu, then this little bit of fan service worked. And whether we'll get this continued or not, the story between Luke and Grogu, is another point. If we do, then I think they'll have to get a permanent actor for Luke, because that's not going to work for the whole series. But it would have to be a different series completely. You can't use what they use for Luke for a whole series. They'll have to get a permanent actor. And I'm surprised they didn't get a permanent actor, like now, to be honest, when they did it. But, yeah, I can see why people call The Mandalorian a lot of fan service. Because Season 2 was, but it deserved it. And with Boba Fett coming back as well, I haven't even mentioned that as fan service, because it made sense. People wanted it, and it made sense within the story. Alright, they didn't do a great job of explaining how he came back. I might be wrong with that, and I might have just forgotten it. But I don't remember them explaining how he actually got out the Sarlacc pit. But it was... the fans wanted it, it made sense in the story, they did it well. Luke Skywalker, the fans wanted a return of Luke Skywalker. Maybe not as much as a return of Boba Fett, but I'm sure if you asked a Star Wars fan beforehand, do you want Luke Skywalker in this? They would have said, yes, absolutely. And again, same with Ahsoka. If someone said, do you want a live-action Ahsoka? Okay, the debate was whether live-action Ahsoka would work. If you gave them the final product of how Ahsoka would look, and then said, this is how we're going to give her to you in The Mandalorian, would you want it? Yes, absolutely, of course. So part of fan service is the fans actually wanting it. There's no point in doing fan service of... I think Lando in The Rise of Skywalker is a good example. While I appreciated that Lando was there, after episode 7 and 8, I didn't need Lando to be there. I appreciated Lando being there, but I didn't walk into that cinema going, I really, really wish Lando was here. That is an example of fan service that doesn't really work as fan service. I mean, it works enough that it doesn't break the story, but it's a bit convenient in the story. And that's what not so good fan service is like, where it kind of stretches the story. The idea that Luke and Lando went off separately to search for a Jedi, for a Sith Wayfinder. I don't really understand how Luke would pick Lando for that. That's where it stretches the story. But at the same time, it was decent, right? It didn't completely break the story, but it didn't add anything to the story either. Whereas Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and Luke Skywalker, less so Luke Skywalker, but definitely Ahsoka, Boba Fett, added to the story. It added something that we didn't get before from Mandalorian, from Din Djarin. Luke Skywalker, again, he was a character simply used to finish the story of Grogu. Now, obviously, I don't know whether Grogu is actually finished. Grogu's story is actually finished, or whether they're going to continue it. Judging by how much money he made and the fact that it's Disney, I would guess that Grogu's story is going to continue. But I think that Luke was used more of as a way to finish the story and a nice moment at the end, more than a main character. But he was still used for the story, which makes it a good purpose for fan service. Whereas Lando was there because Lando had to be there because he's Lando, not because the story needed him to be there. And yes, they could have used another Jedi that we've never heard of before instead of Luke Skywalker. But why? Why would they use another Jedi that we've never heard of before? I mean, they could have used Mace Windu or Cal Kestis. I'm sure they were still around then. But again, why? Luke Skywalker is alive, Luke Skywalker is training Jedi. Luke Skywalker would probably go and recruit Grogu. It would make sense. All of it makes sense. And I think they earned the moment towards the end of the season. And, the way that they played it out was really, really good. The way Mando took his helmet off and gave permission to Grogu to go, and Luke took him with R2. R2 was fan service, but it was fan service that made sense. It didn't necessarily add to the story, him being there, but it made sense, and it didn't break the story, because Luke was with R2. Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, I think there comes a line with fan service. If season 3 of The Mandalorian is filled with fan service, and you're bringing back, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Jimmy from the Battle of Geonosis, then yeah, okay, it becomes. I mean, I hope Kit Fisto wouldn't return, considering we literally saw him get stabbed in episode 3. But that's an example of it stretching the story. Palpatine is another example of fan service that didn't work. Did he add to the story? No. Was he a good addition to the story? No. Why? Did people really, really want Palpatine to return? No. I would have said no. Like, I would have thought that Palpatine's story had finished. But because Disney thought, oh, fans like Palpatine, he's a fan favourite, let's add him in. Why not? That is an example of bad fan service. And I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau know not only what the fans want, because that's 1/5 of storytelling. What fans want. When making a story, you need to consider what fans want, but also what works. And along with many other things. But one little bit of it is what fans want. And that is, unfortunately, with Disney, is what they care about, that one little bit of what fans want. But most of the time they get it wrong with what fans want. But that's another debate for another time. Fan service needs to be deserved. And in conclusion, basically, I'm saying that fan service needs to be deserved. The Mandalorian deserved it. It made a moment towards the end, which fans from when they were, fans that were a kid when Luke Skywalker was around in Return of the Jedi, fans now that watch Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, fans everywhere can appreciate Luke Skywalker being there. So it's a moment for the fans and not the general audience. Well, yes, but it also works for the general audience. And that's what I'm trying to say here. Fan service needs to work in all areas of storytelling in order for it to be good. And this Luke Skywalker appearance works. So let me know what you think. Sorry if I felt like I repeated myself a lot, but it's very difficult to fill 20 minutes without conversation. But I think I've nearly done it. So I hopefully Aiden will be back for the next episode, and it will return to a bit of normality. But thank you for watching, and leave your thoughts on fan service in the comments, and yeah, goodbye.